All right. So Joe Rogan did a live stream comedy special on Netflix this weekend on Saturday night. It was it's got a mixed bag for reviews and such. If you haven't watched it already, I highly recommend if you're a fan of Joe Rogan to go and check it out. It's strange. We'll put it that way. Like it's not exactly for me it wasn't exactly a comedy routine, more so kind of like a fun rant on things. It didn't seem like it was a lot of wasn't as many laughs as I would normally have with a Joe Rogan special, but it was a lot of real relevant stuff. It was almost like watching Dave Chappelle in a way because you get that entertainment factor, but you're not really laughing. Not a lot of laugh out loud kind of joke telling. But I'm going to read this article. This is the New York Times, so it's going to be garbage, but let's see what they have to say. In his stand-up special, Joe Rogan plays dumb. On Saturday night, Joe Rogan started glitching. Minutes into his live comedy special, Burn the Boats, the movements of his mouth did not match what he was saying. Audio went in and out. Certain phrases repeated, Max Headroom style. If you don't know what Max Headroom is, he was a it was a show or based off of a commercial or something back in the 80s. It was like this weird sort of AI robot or AI whatever generated thing on whatever. It was, you look it up. Fuck it. Anyways, someone as conspiracy minded as Rogan might wonder, was this payback for his criticism of vaccines and lockdowns? Is this mainstream media behind this? Aliens? More likely just boring old technical difficulties. Live streaming remains a work in progress for Netflix. Following stand-up hours by Chris Rock and Cat Williams, Rogan became the third comic to try this experiment, putting out his first special in 6 years. You could see the logic of getting him to do it during election season, but oddly, he didn't address the latest developments in the presidential campaign. Yeah, he stayed away from the presidential shit. I mean, it's not even funny to talk about that. Everybody's talking about it, so. Oh, awesome. Well, that's my phone being a douche. Yeah, so it's good that he avoided that. Honestly, I think it would have been just boring for him to talk about it. But anyways, of course, they're going to mention that. Okay, so Rogan made more news last week on his podcast where he suggested that the assassination attempt on Donald J. Trump has been memory hold and that Kamala Harris could win. He also suggested that the reason President Biden sometimes seems more coherent is that he uses a body double. He talks a lot of shit on the podcast. Doesn't mean he 100% believes. He just says some shit. So, anyways, part of the reason that Rogan has built the most popular podcast in the world is that he promises to explore ideas that he says the mainstream media ignores or downplays. Was the moon landing faked or aliens landing in Roswell the reason we invented fiber optics? Does wearing a mask make you seem less of a man? Joe's on it. And yet, there is one question you don't hear investigated on this podcast, one relevant to its success but taboo in certain precincts of the comedy world. Is Joe Rogan good at stand-up comedy? The answer to that is yes, he is. So shut the fuck up. That can be a dangerous one for some critics to touch on because Rogan has become a powerful gatekeeper, the owner of a club in Austin, Texas, and a host who drives viewers to specials and movies. Rogan tends to be talked about as a political or sports figure, a guru for bros, a symptom of a culture rampant with conspiracy, transphobia, and misinformation. But his current notoriety is all built on decades-long career of stand-up, which provides a contrast with his other media job. Okay, this is a little more fluffy fluff, but so here we go. This says his jokes rely on the most well-worn of stand-up subjects. Pat downs at the airport, the comedy of old people having sex, describing a drug trip man. When it comes to sex, men, you have heard, are different than women. The variation with Rogan is an additional sentence mocking the straw man of those who think the differences are purely cultural. His joke constructions are also familiar. The things you think you don't know, or think but don't do. Sorry, the words you can't say. He leans into stereotypes and have cracked up drunken club crowds for generations. When he discovers from a genetic test that he has some African ancestry, you know a joke about penis size is on its way. This article is written very fluffy. It's like an opinion piece, obviously, of the New York Times. But you know, he's got a couple things to say that I kind of agree with a little bit there. In a possible effort to exploit the live aspect of the show, he tries crowd work, asking an audience member to speak up when they yell out something after he worries aloud about the influence of China. Then when they shout out cobalt mine, he appears oddly irritated. Congratulations, he sneers, you know a thing. He's just fucking around with the crowd, so to pick that out is kind of weird. It was kind of a strange sort of crowd work anyway. I didn't think he needed to put it in there, but it was live, and that's what I think this dude's not realizing. It's live, so he's got written material, but he's also kind of riffing off of whatever's going on at the time, and it's not like they get to view it and then go, oh, we're going to release this or we're going to edit this out. Contempt for the crowd is a theme. He pokes fun at the idea that he has any responsibility for the information he hosts on his podcast. If you're getting your vaccine info from me, he asks, is it really my fault? Which is a perfectly relevant position to take. You're listening to a podcast where a guy's riffing for 3 hours with various different people and various different topics all the time. He doesn't pretend to be an expert in anything. He's just a curious guy talking about shit that people don't want to talk about necessarily. So, yeah, it's sort of stupid that he's bringing that up. I'm not going to read any more of this. It's kind of like, it just keeps kind of slamming it a little bit, saying it's not really all that funny, and then whatever. That he talks about different things like Elon Musk and things like that. You just have to watch. You're gonna have to watch this special to see what you think about it. My personal view on it is it's not his funniest. Obviously, for one, it's live, so it's gonna be tough to be that way. And a lot of it is just culturally relevant stuff he's talking about. Some of it's older related stuff, some of it's new, kind of topical stuff that relates to now, and some of it's a little bit in the past. But it's not exactly the funniest thing, but it's entertaining. It's like I said, it's like watching Dave Chappelle. If you like Joe Rogan, you're gonna like this. It's probably not gonna be your favorite of any of his stand-ups, but again, this was kind of an experiment. I think it went all right. I think it could have gone better, but media pieces like this are gonna slam it because it's kind of, that's what they do with Joe Rogan, right?